Hi everyone, it's Amber from Sweet Am's Cookies. In this tutorial, I'll show you how I made this Halloween gingerbread house. Take a look at the description for a link to my recipes, the templates, and all of the supplies you'll need for this project. To decorate this gingerbread house, I started out by icing the windows with flood consistency royal icing. My flood consistency icing is 15 to 20 second count, and you can learn more about it by taking my online class called Royal Icing 101. The link is in the description. So here I'm just using my Scribe tool to help shape the icing. If you don't have one of these tools, you can also just use a toothpick. Now I'm icing the door with pink flood consistency icing. This color is Chefmaster Neon Bright Pink. And now I'm piping a design to match my nails. I'm using black flood consistency icing and just piping stripes while the base layer is still wet. While the windows and the doors dry, I'm icing the roof. This is purple flood consistency icing. I made this color by mixing Chefmaster Violet with a little bit of that neon bright pink. While the purple icing is still wet, I'm piping an orange filigree design with flood consistency icing. This color is Chefmaster Sunset Orange. I've put a link to my detailed video tutorial on how to pipe this design in the description. And that tutorial also comes with a template for practicing, or you can use it to cut your own filigree stencil. And now I'm going to set the roof aside and go back to the front panel of the house. I'm icing it in sections. This is the black flood consistency icing that I used to pipe the stripes on the door. And while the black icing is still wet, I'm piping a spider web with white flood consistency icing. And now I'm dragging the Scribe tool through the icing to make it look more like a spider web. And then you'll just do the same thing on the side panels of the house. For the decorations that are going on the house, I used royal icing transfers. So I'm piping this spider on a piece of wax paper with black icing that's a little bit thicker than flood consistency. And I wanted to give him kind of a fuzzy look, so I covered it with granulated sugar. Now I'm piping some bones that are going to go around the windows and the doors. This icing is also a little bit thicker than flood consistency, and again I'm piping on wax paper. I'm using the same black icing that I used for the spiders to pipe the skulls. Now I'm dusting them with silver edible glitter. There's a link to this edible glitter in the description. And here I'm just filling in the eyes and the nose with more black icing. So at this point you're going to want to let everything dry overnight. And then once the icing is dry, you can brush the excess sugar off of the spiders and remove them from the wax paper. I'm using a little bit of black icing to attach the spiders to the roof, and then I'm using that same black icing to pipe the legs. To create a glowing effect in the windows, I'm painting them with a mixture of food coloring and vodka. This is neon bright green, and in the middle I put neon bright yellow. So I'm just blending that so that it's a little bit lighter in the center and darker around the edges. Now I'm piping around the windows with pink flood consistency icing. This is the same pink icing that I used to flood the door. And then I just outlined the door using orange flood consistency icing. And then you can remove the bones from the wax paper. You do want to let those outlines on the windows and the doors dry a little bit before you attach these bones to the house. These royal icing transfers are really fragile, but if you break some, it's okay because it still goes with the look of this Halloween house. And then you can take the skulls off of the wax paper. I love how these turned out with the edible glitter. Now I'm just attaching a skull to the top window at the front and the back of the house. I'm piping a doorknob with medium consistency icing. And now we can assemble the house. To put this together, I'm using stiff consistency icing that's been thinned just a little bit. So it's not quite stiff, but it's not quite medium. You're just gonna press those pieces together and hold them in place for about 30 seconds. And now I'm using that same icing to cover the seams. Before you put the roof on, just let all of this dry for 1 or 2 hours. And then you can use that same icing to assemble the roof. And then hold that in place for about 30 seconds to make sure it sticks. If your roof pieces are sliding off, you can put something underneath them to support it while it dries. And then to create some dripping slime on the top of the house, I'm using that same icing that I used to pipe the doorknob, which is medium consistency icing. This icing holds a soft peak. Now I'm doing the same thing along the bottom edge of the roof. And then you'll just do the same along the front of the roof. Now I'm using sprinkle tweezers to attach the skulls. You can do this by hand. I was just at a weird angle for filming this, so I thought it was easier to use the tweezers. And then the last thing is just to put a little more of that green slime along the bottom edge of the house. And here is the finished Halloween gingerbread house. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Bye!